Ahoy hoy gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome, and if you're joining us from a previous video, hey, we'd love to see it, and I hope you're doing well. It's Season 8, the season of the real 100th episode, and I'll fight anyone that thinks differently. That being said, Season 8 is a lot, and I'm gonna be completely honest with you all, you're probably gonna think I had a stroke when I talk about these episodes. But I promise, if you just hear me out, you might just end up agreeing with me. Yeah, that doesn't instill any confidence, does it, huh? You won't believe what my favorite episode of this season is. So I have to ask those three age-old questions. What worked, what failed, what head-licking revolutionary trips will be curtailed? Check the ice before you skate, because it's time to review Season 8. I'm gonna be real with you, gang. I had not watched most of the season before. I'd swear I had, but with each passing episode, I realized this was completely uncharted territory for me. And talk about a first episode that I'd never seen before. With Planet Express struggling, the men decide that they should do a pinup calendar, and they even hire La Barbara so they can get more women to fill out the calendar. Oh, and then they start an airline. They end up running out of gas and crash on a barren planet where they run into a rock monster who does a battle of the sexes, switches everyone's sexes, and then neuters everyone after that, and they start to live in harmony for a time until, you know, they want those parts back. Positives? It feels like a genuine Hermes and La Barbara episode that shows that they do care about each other, even if La Barbara is willing to invite Barbados Slim to Kwanzaa dinner and will divorce Hermes at the first opportunity if he slips up. The negatives? The episode is just sort of there, I guess. The guys get turned into women, and then they do the pinup calendar, and all get turned back to normal by the new recurring character, the Borax Kid. Played, of course, by the man of many voices, Maurice LaMarche. I will say they at least used the Borax Kid sparingly enough, and admittedly I do kind of appreciate his design. The episode as a whole is just sort of okay, though. The rock monster part kinda drags in a lot of spaces, and it never really makes a lot of sense. I will admit, the rock monster's delivery is not my favorite Dave Herman character. It's not even at the same level as, like, Rebirth in the first season. It's just sorta there. The jokes feel stale and the writing is just simple, oddly enough. No one really wanted the side characters that are presented either. I was never going, wow, I really wish we got more of Old Hooker, or Crazy Cat Lady, or even Old Grizzled How's Yous Guys Doin's Guys. Like, I don't care. None of it really mattered at all. It's another trope episode about swapping sexes that didn't even feel like their hearts were in it when they were writing it. Newtopia is a low-hanging and saggy 4 out of 10. Bender gets a copier that'll make a smaller copy of himself if it consumes matter. Patton Oswalt plays a giant with a skin condition. That's the entire episode. I'm really kind of upset Patton Oswalt isn't in more episodes, or even just, you know, in a better one. He's actually trying. I just wish it was for something more. But I mean, you know, again, he tried in MODOK, and look at where that got him. Sometimes, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, you just can't win. And that's okay. He's won in other things. He's a blip on an overall whelming episode. The Benders keep multiplying till they're able to break down water into alcohol and turn all of Earth's water into basically vodka. I can't. I perked up when I heard the giant played by Patton Oswalt and then completely zoned out for the rest of the episode. It is genuinely one of the worst Bender episodes I've ever had the displeasure of watching, and worse yet, there are way better Bender episodes in the Comedy Central era, even in this season. This is just nothing. It goes on for way too long, is predictable to a fault, and it just manages to spin its wheels till the credits roll. I was genuinely ready to give up on this season after this episode, but I stuck it out. I tried to keep fighting, and I had to believe the next episode was gonna be something even better. What's that? The next episode is a Bender episode where he's a ghost? I hate this timeline. Benderama is a divergent, yet dull, 3 out of 10. I really can't. I told you, this season is weird. It's so weird. Anyway, the gang go to a parade while they wait for their insurance to renew, and when a globe starts rolling towards a robot and a human, Fry jumps in to save the human and leaves the robot to get crushed. Bender, seeing that Fry cares more about human life than robot life, gets upset. Remember in Lethal Inspection where Bender himself says that robots can just have their consciousness re-uploaded into another body and everything is good to go, making them effectively immortal? You don't get to do an episode all about that idea and how Bender feels not having that option available to him because of a defect, and then try and do a human and robot lives are equal story idea. At that point, it's just sort of tired and dull right out the gate. Oh look, Bender dated a hee-haw booth, so when he goes to pretend to whack himself, she makes sure he actually finishes the job this time, and he has to go and make a deal with the robot devil to scare Fry out of his body, and ends up getting Fry to go to an Amish planet where he can't be haunted by robo-ghosts anymore. It's just a compilation of all the different ways Bender can try and scare his best friend to death, to teach him what lesson exactly. It's just, I mean, Dan Castellaneta is really fun as the Robot Devil in the Comedy Central era, and he seems to be very much more loose with the character, which I appreciate. But overall, yeah, still pretty whelmed this season. I had a mission to review every episode of Futurama, and honestly, this was the hardest part of the entire journey so far. Was I just burnt out on the show? I don't think so. This was just really nothing. It just kept cutting to one scene after another, and the jokes just weren't there. It takes a lot for me to be just plain bored with an episode of Futurama, and yet here we are. The jokes are fine, the plot is nonsense, and there was never a point where I really cared what I was looking at. Ghost in the Machines is a wish upon level 3 out of 10. Remember Smitty? Remember Smitty the cop? He's been around since the pilot. Boy, you telling me you don't remember Smitty? Well, Smitty retires from the police force. Don't worry, it's literally just for this episode. Fry is tired of being a delivery boy, and when he gets pranked at the cryogenics lab yet again, he leaves Planet Express to go back the boys in blue and joins the police force. Oh look, an episode based off of Minority Report, Tron, Police Academy, and so much more. And you know what? I'm fine with it. What's that? The grizzled police chief O'Manahan is a woman? Sure, fine, whatever, I'll take it. Fry and his new partner Earl stop Schrodinger and his magical box full of wondrous surprises and maybe an alive or dead cat after they have a good old-fashioned car chase Tron race. Fry gets put on future crimes, and when he sees a future crime where Bender steals booze and almost takes out all of his friends, he decides he has to find a way to stop him. What? Turns out that the Oracle bot was actually the bad guy the entire time? You know what? I don't even care. I don't care at all. This episode was such a breath of fresh air compared to the last 3 that I will overlook anything at this point. The jokes felt fresh, the episode was fun, and overall I moved on from the episode with an actual sense of hope. I also appreciated that they focused on Earl, which I did not think I'd ever say. He was actually really enjoyable in this episode, and I don't know, I would revisit this episode more than a few times. Though I will say the Pandora part made my eyes water, and it is rough for a second. Law & Oracle is a future crime preventing 8 out of 10. Remember how last season I said that Maurice LaMarche is like every third character and they need to stop relying on him so much? I'd just like to take this time to slap myself for ever thinking something so preposterous, because this episode is like 80% LaMarche and 1000% incredible. The gang deliver to Donbot's daughter Bella's wedding, and Bender sees Donbot brutalizing Calculon, which brings me Marie Kondo levels of joy. Bender goes into wet set, Clamp joins the Planet Express crew to hunt him down, and I love it. I love that Clamp swears, I love that Zoidberg resents him for taking his role away from being the snipping guy, I love Moonbender, I love it all. It is all near and dear to my heart. It feels like a true Blue Comedy Central episode. This is a brilliant episode overall, and I bask in the life-giving moon sun that it provides. I love that Clamps makes this entire episode just that much angrier, and they really, really lean into that more just extra raunchy Comedy Central energy this season. I don't know, the early episodes felt very Fox-ish, but now it feels like it's coming into its identity proper, and it is glorious. The all-you-can-eat lobster special being a limited time offer? Perfect. Absolute mwah, 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 chef's kiss. I was laughing so hard I was crying in some parts of this episode, and it even got me to laugh at Calculon because even the show sort of hates him at this point. It's so aware and so strikingly comedic that it frankly left me baffled that the season started the way it did, and looking at the rest of the season, it's just kind of perfect. Once this season hits its momentum, it does not stop. The Silence of the Clamps is a Maurice LaMarche showcasing loving father deleting 9 out of 10. I know you're probably saying to yourself, wait, he said every episode for the rest of the season is good. Isn't this the season with the Yo Gabba Gabba episode? There's no way he actually liked that episode, right? Well, thank you, accented individual, for pointing that out. But what if I told you this episode, this blatant Yo Gabba Gabba parody, is one of my favorite episodes of Futurama? What if I told you it's not just in my top 5, but it might actually be my #1 favorite episode of the entire show? It's okay if you unsubscribe. I don't even blame you. You're not alone. But if you give me a moment, I'll explain. I love this episode. I think it's one of the best Leela episodes and has some of the sharpest jokes because it's just a Yo Gabba Gabba parody, and I've never even seen an episode of the show, because when this episode came out, I was comfortably a grown-ass man. That's right. I don't know if it's just subversive comedy or what, but this episode is gold. Leela goes to the orphanarium and tries to tell the kids a story, and the kids are in sheer and utter agony, so she leaves defeated. She takes the Planet Express ship and flies off. She later comes back when Abner Double Deal, one of the best side characters ever, shows up, who is just played brilliantly again by Tom Kenny. Leela pitches the Humplings from Rumbledy Hump, and the kids love it. Abner loves it. Everyone adores it, and so of course they go to make a live-action show about it. Fun fact, Mark Mothersborough of Devo would actually be a frequent guest on Yo Gabba Gabba and would show up in this episode about Yo Gabba Gabba exactly 0 times. I love dumb comedy. I love absurdist and meta comedy a lot of the time. So when they're filming a live action episode about how you should never lick another living thing and how you should poke something with your stick before licking it, that got me. That floored me. The stick just being jammed into Zoidberg's eye, it's so quick, so stupid, and yet so effective all at once that I could only gawk at its brilliance. Is the episode dumb? Oh, you better believe it. Bender finds out that the Humplings are real aliens that Leela just watches and writes what they do, and proceeds to blackmail her into getting what he wants. But by the end of the episode, the Humplings are making money off the show, the orphans get adopted to work on the show, and Leela faces 0 consequences for her actions even though she feels so guilty about it all. Maybe it's because comedy evolves so quickly, but I love this episode. I don't understand how its rating is so low, and I encourage everyone to revisit it because I sincerely think Yo Leela Leela is a lick stick poking 10 out of 10. Fry has a night job at the head museum where all the presidents boo and hiss in an attempt to get him to bring them some beer and a party most hearty. And naturally, Fry obliges and gets the Planet Express crew to come on down and party with the presidents until they're drinking head water and licking heads and taking trippy trips back in time. I just adore how dumb this episode is. I love that all the conflict comes from them testing the limits of how crazy they can get with licking president heads. While partying, George Washington informs Hubert of a colonial betrayer of the Farnsworth clan, and he's ready to pluck this toxic branch from his family tree. And so they lick good old George Washington's head and go back to the Revolution to stop that felonious Farnsworth, only for Fry to ruin Paul Revere's ride and make sure the British win, so they have to go back and correct everything a second time. It's like an episode of Magic School Bus, Wishbone, or a really trippy version of Our Friend Martin. Don't worry, I remember that little movie too, and it was very real. No, I know what it is. It's what if Liberty Kids dropped acid. Want me to blow your mind a little bit about Liberty Kids, by the way? Liberty Kids had Sylvester Stallone, Liam Neeson, Ben Stiller, Michael Douglas, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Whoopi Goldberg, and Billy Crystal in it, and that's not even everyone that starred in this educational kids show. It's wild. The British future was whatever, but I really loved the rest of this episode, and it was just more excellence that I couldn't get over just how unapologetically yet masterfully crafted and how dumb it was. It was like watching an Adult Swim show, and I think that's what makes these episodes stand out. These are appealing to that new audience. You think Fox would have let them lick the president's heads to trip and go back in time? Nah, that's the power of cable, baby! And it's glorious. All the president's heads is a scalp slurpin' 9 out of 10. Hubert is reflecting on the loss of his first crew 50 years ago in the Bermuda Tetrahedron, and so he sends his new crew to grab a memorial for them to put at Planet Express for the honoring ceremony. No one knows what's happened to the original crew, even though Zoidberg was on the mission and came back with white hair and was absolutely frozen in place by the horrors he saw. When the crew pick up the statue, Leela decides to save time and goes through the tetrahedron instead of around it, and they find out what took out the last crew. A giant 4D whale that feeds off of obsession. Not gonna lie, love the episode. Obviously, it's just a Moby Dick reference, but so? It's fun, and I enjoy not only that Zoidberg is being shown more and more and actually getting some proper attention, but also that this is just a solid adventure. Leela's obsession with a job well done supersedes her obsession over the whale, so she's able to take over the whale and take it home. And frankly, that's great. That's a creative way to spin this. There's so many things to love about the episode, from the oddly endearing animation, the fantastic jokes, and yeah, it's just another absolute banger. It really seems like these seasons need to hit their momentum, but once they do, that quality is always there. I mean, we're 21 episodes into the Comedy Central era, and you can still see all the passion at the core of the show, and it's really beautiful in a way that flame has never truly gone out. You don't have the 4D whale dipping in between dimensions like it does because it's just some sort of filler episode you're writing to stretch out for 20 minutes. You do that because you had a creative idea and a spin on a classic story. It's not topical, it's not trying to make reference to an iPhone or anything, it's just a good sci-fi adventure. And Leela being the one that's obsessed with capturing it is phenomenal for her character, and it makes sense. There's a lot to really love. Mobius Dick is a dimension harpooning 8 out of 10. This is an episode I encourage everyone to watch. Not because it's good or anything, but if you've never seen it before, but you've seen Futurama, pause this video and just go and watch and pause every 5 minutes and see if you can guess what's going to happen next. This is the most paint-by-numbers episode of Futurama ever, and I really kind of love it because of that. Leela hates eating fast junk food, so she takes everyone to a farmer's market where they get some eggs. Fry finds out the eggs are fertile and could actually hatch into a living thing and decides to protect the egg and wait for it to hatch. Knowing Fry's history and what the funnier joke would be, does it hatch into a cute little wisecracking Alfran named McHooters with a little bagpipe on his little shoulder, or B, a hideous bone-sucking, screeching chupacabra-esque creature? Obviously, yeah, it turns into the bone sucker. But is it friendly towards Fry and just inherently violent, or absolutely hates him even though he showers him with love? Funnily enough, the pet actually loves Fry and they do have a bit of a bond. The episode is predictable, but never lazy, and I think that's what I really love about it. It's just another trope idea turned into this Scottish Scooby-Doo whodunit by the end of the episode that has a kind of endearing conclusion. Seriously, animated series have the weirdest tropes. Hatching an egg that turns out to be a freakish monster that's either A, super into you, or absolutely hates you. So frequent and odd it happens so many times, but the episode itself is really fantastic. It's genuinely funny, has a charm in being just a quick little adventure, and you walk away wholeheartedly enjoying what you watched. Sometimes dumb for the sake of dumb is good. Fry Am the Eggman is a Benedict accentuating, perfectly seasoned 8 out of 10. Alright, now this is a whole episode. The crew is tired of Zoidberg messing everything up and keep pushing the professor to fire him, and yet Hubert absolutely refuses to. We're then told through flashbacks how Zoidberg and Hubert met on an expedition organized by Mom. They're hunting for a Tritonian Yeti in poisonous swamps that infect the rest of the crew, but Zoidberg is actually kinda competent in the past, and I really love the spin on his character. Having him be an old friend of the professor and being able to get away with anything understandably would make Hermes adamantly hate him, while also explaining why such an incompetent doctor can hang around as long as he does. I don't know, it's an episode that really makes you appreciate Zoidberg as a character. We kind of got it in Mobius Dick, but here it's definitely way more center focus. As the professor is dying, he asks Zoidberg to take him out, and when the gang stops Zoidberg, the professor lets them in on what's going on, and they decide to take out the professor in his stead, while Zoidberg realizes what's going on and goes to talk with Mom. Even Mom talks to Zoidberg with some amount of respect and care that she doesn't even show her own sons. She actually genuinely feels for Zoidberg. And so, Zoidberg realizes that Hubert isn't poisoned like the rest of their squad was with super malaria, but rather is turning into a Yeti, and so he tries to turn him into basically a super Yeti as the rest of the Planet Express crew come up with this giant complicated device so that none of them have like explicit guilt in taking out the professor, and they can all feign ignorance and believe that they didn't do it just so, they don't have guilt, which I absolutely adore. It's just, I don't know, the episode is so smart and so dumb at the same time, and it's just utterly delightful. I remember this episode fondly, and it really just speaks to Billy West's versatility that he can make Fry, Farnsworth, and Zoidberg all feel like thoroughly fleshed out characters. It's just absolutely great and one of the best episodes of the entire series. The tip of the Zoidberg is an extra hairy 10 out of 10. The true 100th episode. I will stand on this. The funny part is both the 100th episodes are honestly really, really good. The episode opens with Fry and his dad going to an ice shack to go ice fishing, and Fry falls into the ice and has to be pulled out by his dad after his dad tried to tell him not to do it, and Fry starts shivering. Back in the future, Fry is taking everyone ice fishing, and they don't get anything except for a tiny little fish, and Fry catches a cold, spreading it to everyone, reintroducing a virus that had gone extinct hundreds of years ago. I don't know. With the parasites that fix his body and all the reincarnations, you'd think the virus wouldn't have survived that long to reintroduce itself, but I don't know. You wave it away. I'm sure I'm thinking too much about this futuristic sitcom. So yeah, the future has to get rid of the common cold, and in the past we get flashbacks focusing on Fry and his relationship with his dad, even having Fry entering a competition to have his science experiment sent to space. The problem? Fry, much like his future self, is a moron. He wants to send his hamster to space and starts training him and proceeds to lose to the smartest kid in class, who shot the common cold virus into space, leaving it perfectly preserved for centuries, which conveniently allows the professor to make a vaccine and save everyone. The future part of the story is used very sparingly, and I appreciate that. Much like Luck of the Fryish, the writers knew how to perfectly balance these two stories and really give us a focus on Fry and his dad. His dad had always been presented as the stern veteran doomsday prepper that never really said or did anything nice to Fry. He missed Fry when he left, absolutely, but you never saw him as a positive influence in Fry's life until now. We also see Fry's genuine love for space, and I kinda love that he loves space and isn't the smartest kid in the room. You don't have to be a genius to appreciate the vastness of the universe. And they even have Buzz Aldrin in the episode, played of course by Mass Effect 3 voice actor and man-puncher Buzz Aldrin. And while Fry's dad is never under the illusion that Fry can win the science fair, and openly tells him that, he never outright stops him. He lets him see it through to complete his mission. And at the end of the episode, we see them in the shack as Fry is shivering. His dad tells him that he's hard on him because he loves him, and he wants him ready for threats and dangers that he couldn't even imagine. He wants his son to be able to stand on his own and face the unknown prepared. The episode earns those heartfelt moments, and by the end, as the father and son are sharing a beer, you get a much more rounded out idea of who Fry's family was. They were flawed, but they loved him in their own ways. And that's just family in general. I would argue this is a pretty flawless Futurama episode. It's everything you'd expect from a good, solid, core episode of the show. Emotional element, sharp jokes, and just a genuinely fantastic flow. Now, is it big 100th episode energy? No, absolutely not. It would feel like doing a whole weekend marathon of Naruto leading up to the 100th episode, just for the 100th episode to be filler, reminding you that Rock Lee was a broken man after getting sandboxed by an emo kid. Actually happened, fun fact. Look up the Naruto Hundo Marathon on Cartoon Network. Cold Warriors is a cozy, familiar episode of Futurama that shines through in a season of later quality. Cold Warriors is a frosty and fun 10 out of 10. Alright, so Bender sucks at video games, and after he gets the squad taken out by Mom's boys, Cubert decides to overclock him and push his processing power to the limit, giving Bender a serious upgrade. Mom finds out and has Cubert and Hubert arrested, so people don't think they can just upgrade their robots instead of having to replace them, and demands that they reset Bender. Bender goes on an upgrading spree and runs off, even stopping Mom's robots by now being able to see into the future. That's the A story. Bender getting turned into this almost omnipotent supercomputer and effectively close to the binary god he saw back in Godfellas. He develops a sense of empathy and sage wisdom as he upgrades beyond what was ever thought possible, and as things go on, steadily grows ambivalent to the smaller goings-on of the world. That's pretty heavy. What's the B story? Oh, Leela doesn't know where things are going and just isn't sure that she's happy anymore. Fry wants to know what'll happen between them, while Leela just goes off to be a space realtor to get her mind off things. Bender gets convinced to save the day and gets Cubert and Hubert out of court thanks to Double Jeopardy, and gives Fry and Leela the ultimate prediction of their relationship. Which, while it would be rocky in some parts, it would ultimately end with them both being happy together. Even though Bender becomes the giant supercomputer, the story is honestly incredibly human. It's very down-to-earth in a lot of ways. There's absolutely jokes, but as Bender gets smarter and smarter, the jokes are less and less, as he seemingly loses a part of his sassier personality, which is funny because one of the last jokes is about Fry talking to somebody else. And honestly, I will say, I haven't really gone into it at all, but John DiMaggio really is a one-of-a-kind voice talent that has done an expert job at bringing Bender to life. There has never been a moment where a single line is sounded off, and that speaks to his absolute talent. And remember, before Futurama, John DiMaggio hadn't done a ton of work. Now, though, I could name 10 projects he's been in without mentioning Futurama or Matt Groening off the top of my head with no problem. Easy. Chowder, Kim Possible, Batman, Jake Long, Adventure Time, Brickleberry, Samurai Jack, Waka in Final Fantasy X, Marcus Phoenix in Gears of War, and hey, why not? Let's do Ben 10 for good measure to finish it out. This show is truly made up of a genuinely next-level cast, and this episode is a brilliant showcase of how John DiMaggio made Bender the cultural icon he is today. Overclockwise is an overclocked 10 out of 10. And here we are, the season finale. The last season finale made me want to scratch my eyes out and cry into the abyss. This one doesn't. So, already an improvement. The episode is 3 separate stories, like usual: an old Steamboat Willie, Cuphead black and white adventure, an 8-bit video game on the graphical level of E.T., and the obligatory anime segment based off anime of mostly the 80s. Series came out in 2010. You could update the anime references just a bit. That being said, the cool thing is that the episode has a through line of a Diamondium comet. In the first episode, it's broken and Fry uses it to propose to Leela. In the second part, the shards of the comet have been used to make a lens for the professor to solve all of life's mysteries. And the third has a bunch of dancing aliens upset the comet was destroyed in the first place. No nut ads, no bank sponsorships, just a slip from one animation style to the next, and it's absolutely, perfectly fine. I think the first episode is probably the strongest of the 3 and definitely had the most creative direction attached to it. The other 2 almost feel like hangers-on, just a way to hit the 20-minute mark, and honestly at this point, that's fine. Neither is particularly bad, and I didn't dislike the 8-bit one, but it was definitely my least favorite of the 3. I'm the anime academic. I'm gonna go like, oh wow, that's the how to draw anime style. I'm kind of about that really dumb gimmick. Party on, dude. Like, the anime part was dumb, didn't really have a lot of anime tropes to it, but neither does the Simpsons adaptations, but we take those. We absolutely take any references. I genuinely didn't dislike any of the bits, and the episode as a whole was a great come down to an otherwise pretty stellar season. Reincarnation is a dance fight winning 8 out of 10. And there we have it. That's season 8. Anything you think I was right on, wrong on? What was your favorite episode of the season? Least favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked what you saw, make sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends we're out here. Season 8 was probably the one I'm going to get the most flack for defending the Yo Gabba Gabba episode, but genuinely I think it was an overall improvement on the last season and a pretty winning formula. While it started a little rough, it ended on some of the best episodes Futurama has ever had, and continues to prove I was wrong for not really giving the Comedy Central era a fair chance. And hey, next season we'll have a bag-headed egomaniac, an icy Oktoberfest, and so much more. It'll all be fine when we talk about Season 9. And that's going to do it for us here at the Lecture Hall. If you want to support the channel, get videos early, and have exclusive polls, consider joining our Patreon or membership program today. $2 a month and you get your name on this fancy list. Woo! Thank you all so much for watching, and like always, stay strong, remember that you matter, and keep fighting that good fight. It's okay to not be okay, and a brighter tomorrow is coming. I can feel it. Goodbye, everybody, and I'll see you all next time.